Good afternoon and welcome to the Visual and Performing Arts Region 5 Annual. This is actually our 5th Arts Forum. We have what I believe will be a very informative and I hope also very inspirational program for you. So welcome our live audience and also welcome all of you on live stream or through our cable TV system or on channel 38, which is over the air. And normally at this point I would introduce the super boss, but she doesn't appear to be here. She's probably dealing with some enormously complex and difficult issues somewhere. But just to remind everyone of how important Dr. Katowski has been for all of us for the past 12 years. We'll make sure that that's on record. To sort of paraphrase our current president, she has had a huge impact on all of us here at the MCAET Center. So, I think without further ado, we'll just get along with the program. We have a couple of deadlines that we need to meet. One of them is the airlines. 12 years ago, when I first started as the arts coordinator, I attended an incredibly inspirational workshop in Sacramento that helped me frame all the work that I have done here at the Monterey County Office of Education. It's really, really important for me because I understood then that it was all about opportunity. It was all about opening up the arts to as many youngsters as we possibly could. I saw the individual that led the workshop several more times, and I finally worked up the courage to ask her to come to Monterey County and help us develop and then implement a dream school for the arts. Like so many others that I had encountered throughout the state, and I was most impressed with her contributions. But you know what? I think we'll improvise just a little bit because the superintendent has just walked in. And we really need for all of us to acknowledge Dr. Katowski. This is perhaps the final forum that she will be presenting because this is the end of her tenure. And she, for me and for everything you see around, is enormously important. So Nancy, if you'd like to say a few words, we'd love to have you. Come on up, and I will continue after your introduction with the introduction to today's keynote speaker, Dr. Katowski.
Microphone, huh?
Yeah,
okay.
We're live on TV.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. It's just wonderful to have you all here this afternoon. We've had such a dynamic day today with our students from a number of high schools throughout our county, and even San Benito County was over here today.
Absolutely.
So, and we're so honored to have Jack Mitchell. Where is he? Jack Mitchell with us from the California Department of Education, and all of you here this afternoon. Thank you so much for coming. And the most exciting thing about what we have happening here in Monterey County is that we have this incredible facility for the future. There's that movie, that's the line that says, if we build it, they will come. And so many years back, we were thinking that very same thing. Do you know the County Board of Education always invested in instructional support for the classrooms? Way back, years and years back, if you remember, there were film strips, and there were movies, and there were instructional materials of various kinds, and we had a center called Instructional Materials Center, a resource center, instructional resources. And as the years developed and this building was built, the cornerstone, if you look at this building, there was an investment by this County Office of Education for the importance of supporting the classroom and supporting the instruction of our students. And that has just evolved over the years. And we came to a decision point with our television station here. Were we going to continue with a sleepy television station, or we were going to make it something really dynamic for the future? And the decision happened through bringing in of Hamish, whose vision and creativity led us to the work that has developed and evolved over here. This was a warehouse in the past. It was a little sleepy TV station. And what we have evolved to now is this incredible center that's been created for our students and our teachers for their future. And in the world that we now live of the 21st century, it's an incredible investment to be able to bring the state-of-the-art technologies, resources to bear in the way in which our students are learning today, and to be able to integrate the creative expressions of all of the areas of the arts and as they're evolving today into the curriculum, to be able to infuse that, but also to create career pathways for our students. But no matter what pathways they take, what they're learning through the use of the kinds of resources that we now have available here, the state-of-the-art resources that we have for you and for your teachers in your classrooms to bring to your students, it's really our moral responsibility as educators to be preparing our students for their future. And that's really what this is about. This is creating opportunities for our educators to be able to work with their students and come here and utilize this facility in whatever ways work for you, and to bring our students here as we can at points in their projects and the work that they're doing at school sites to be able to utilize what we have available. We have an incredible vehicle available, a big rig that's all set up that can be brought to the schools. We have a mobile television unit that goes out, and a production truck that goes out and does the work out in the field. There's so much that's available here that we have created to be resources for you, for the teachers, for the educators in our community to be able to access with their students. So we really want to make this center be a place where our students are really being well prepared for their future with opportunities, and we have to give that to them. It's our responsibility as educators. So the County Office of Education is here to do that. One of our core values of the county office is innovation. And we know that creative imagination and innovation, these are America's greatest strengths. We have to make it available to our students. And I know you're doing that. Those of you who are here today because you share this kind of vision and you understand this importance, and you're working with your students to make sure that they have available to them the best of the best, and they can learn to operate it. They can move into all the different career pathways that they've been exploring today. And we're really very, very proud to be a demonstration site for the state of California, and want to be sure that we're just taking it all to the highest level we can with the caliber of opportunities that we're making available to our students. And in order to do that, it has to be through the work with our teachers. So I want to thank all of you who are here today with us for joining us and for the learning that we're going to be doing in the course of this afternoon. So thank you all so very much for being here. We appreciate it. Appreciate what you're doing for our kids in the classrooms every day. It means so much, and I know they're grateful. They'll be coming back to you someday with gratitude for what it is that's being made available to them through your efforts. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Nancy. Okay, well, thank you very much, Dr. Kadowski. And now we'd kind of like to refresh and get back to the original dream that I had for the creation of an arts-based school, something that I had seen in other counties when I went to Sacramento, and I was able to talk and converse with Dr. Stevens, and I finally, again, worked up the courage to ask her to come down here and address the assembled folks. We did so in the Pine Inn. It was the first time that we actually got together, and then got together with folks like Phil and Luis Valdez, and really started to think in terms of what this school, this dream school, would look like. And this school would need to serve the needs of the county's students. And this would be in particular the county's under and non-served students. So having that in mind, and after a lot of hard work and bringing folks down from Sacramento, we had a combination of some of the best thinkers in the state, along with Dr. Stevens, and she was able, for you folks that are here from the Millennium, she framed the foundation of your school. And it was through her work, through Jack's work, Nancy Carr, and again, some of the leading educators at that time in the state of California that helped us draft the petition and the framework, which is now at the core of the charter school. Vicki Stevens is just, it's staggering to try to describe all of the different things that she is and has been and continues to be. She's a clinical psychologist, she's a psychoanalyst, she's a speaker extraordinary, she is a professional developer, she's a writer, she's a researcher, she's worked with traumatized veterans, she's worked with foster children, the homeless, she's worked with youth gangs, and she's always using the arts as a basis for her work. You know, recently I was trying to describe all of the things that Vicki is for me and for the state, and what? No one person can possibly do all of that. And I saw this person a couple of weeks later and said, you know what, I actually did research her, and she has. And it is absolutely amazing. She's an accomplished concert musician. She's a performer. She's a member of the Grammy Foundation. And the list goes on and on. But most importantly for me, she is a source of continuous inspiration and admiration for all that she is and all that she has done. So this afternoon I'd like you to welcome our keynote speaker, Dr. Victoria Stevens.
Hey, thank you. Thank you. It's absolutely a pleasure. We do our own stands in the clubs to be here. I love Monterey. Hamish, Nancy, Jack, we were all part of this team that started this incredible bringing together of career technology, education, and the arts for all youth, and equity and access, and a commitment to having the community come together with all of its resources and be a model for the state, and it is. And today I want to say, first of all, how thrilled I am to meet all of the faculty that are at the school and all of you that are working in the community, the Arts Council, the museum. I know there are people that I'm not sure that I know who all you are, but I know from different areas of maybe San Benito as well as Santa Clara. I've worked in all of these counties and have appreciated the differences and the unique contributions that each of the schools make in each of their communities. And Phil and Teatro Campesino, you know, all part of this. Today, what I wanted to think about is how we take things to the next place. There is so much research, there are so many different reasons that we all know that the arts are important. We understand about creativity and innovation, and we all understand the challenges. And what I wanted to talk about is kind of at a higher level. What do we do when we've achieved something, which everyone here has? There's no question about it. And then think about how do we really keep our commitment and our promise to the kids and really fulfill what we know we can do. And it's difficult, it's challenging, but I think that this is the conversation that we can have because of all of the work that has been done and because of the accomplishments that have happened. So I talked about, in my title, creativity, imagination, and collective conscience. So I wanted to talk today about a few things from a little bit of neuroscience. As Hamish said, I do work with trauma and creativity, with children, with veterans. I work with survivors of all different kinds of abuse and trauma. And I was mentioning to Jack earlier when we were talking that psychology is currently getting turned on its head in terms of bringing the arts in to trauma treatment and understanding the language of the body in reference to emotional trauma. It is relevant for psychology as much as it is for teachers, for the ability to learn and focus for children, and for their experiences outside of the school, and their experiences not just walking home or at home, but in terms of the culture and social media, economic, political, fear, violence. We all know all of this is true. So I want to talk about this a little bit and make a sort of a case for rigor and working harder and working together. And I'm going to set it up for Jack to talk about the new standards that are going to be coming and hopefully inspire you to want to learn how to do this. So that's my goal. So there we go. Whoops. I clicked. So we all know, I'm sure, the story of the Good Samaritan from our growing up in any kind of religious orientation that we might have had, and it's a parable. But I want to talk a little bit about a study that you may or may not know of that happened in Princeton in 1973. And what happened was there were two researchers, and they said, I am very interested to find out why people help or why they don't. Under what circumstances. So taking the idea from the Good Samaritan, where the Samaritan ends up helping the man who was stripped and left for dead on the side of the road, as opposed to the Levite and the priest. And so why do people do that and why don't they? And so what they devised was an experiment. And the experiment went something like this. They had seminary students who were trained to give and told. They were trained in terms of giving sermons, but they were also told to create a sermon about the parable of the Good Samaritan. And then they divided them into different groups and with different conditions. And so under one condition, they were told, you have to move from this building and so that you can give your talk in the next building, and you're late. And you have to go really fast. And in another condition, they were told that you have a little bit of time, and in another one, they had plenty of time. Along the way, they planted an actor who was in pain and on the sidewalk, on the way, on the pathway, right on their way. They couldn't miss it. And so what they did was they looked to see how many people stopped and why. And you can probably imagine that out of the conditions, the people that were in the hurried condition didn't stop the most. Actually, 10% of the students stopped when they were in a hurry, in a rush, and 63% in the non-hurried. But the rushed group also, some of them even walked over the body of the person who was lying, the victim. So the point here is that we have some evidence, and this was something that spurred a lot of research, which is to find out what happens to us when we are under stress, and how we miss details that are important, and how we miss the big picture. And what we know now is that stress, external stress, internal stress, will literally shut down your creative thinking. It will shut down your ability to pay attention to what's going on around you. It will shut down your ability to think critically and be able to ask questions, because we move into survival mode and we move into fight or flight. And it becomes very narrow in terms of self-preservation. And that's what happens when we are overwhelmed with a variety of different kinds of stress. And so the picture here we see all too often, people walking by the homeless for whatever reason. But I do want to think about how we can, why is it that when we have so many resources available to us, often we default to just getting through, right? So we have stated conscious intentions. I want to do this. I want to develop creativity in my kids, my imagination. It's great. Music, we know it's important. And then what happens when we get derailed? What happens when we're going through the day and we have this and we have that and we've got this and we've got that, or we've got money issues, we've got budgetary issues in terms of the bigger picture of hiring, right? What happens when we're under stress or under fear for our jobs, for our lives, for whatever reason, that we actually begin to lose our focus? So how many of you have the experience of having a stated conscious intention, you believe in it totally, you want to achieve it, and yet you find yourself either not doing it or doing the opposite? Yeah. So it happens, right? So how do we walk according and live according to our purpose? How do we do that, especially under stress? Okay, so creative thinking then is gone, and we get what we call hijacked by our amygdala and our emotional brain. Now, this happens with our students under stress at school. It happens in test conditions, but it happens for a variety of reasons. But nevertheless, when the emotional brain then floods our frontal cortex, we have problems with attention and with memory, and that will show up in terms of things like test scores, or the ability to literally remember what you have learned. And then often when that happens, we have kids that are made to feel or diagnosed as having a learning problem or not doing well, when in fact they're just overloaded. But this happens to us as well. So we default to the familiar, to fight or flight, to our survival, and focus on self-interest and self-protection, or do whatever it is that we have done before in order to manage stress. Okay? For some people, it's dissociating and spacing out. For some people, it's just running around and getting very active or getting agitated, right? We can go either direction. And so this lack of attention, and we lose our focus on the important information and details right near us and the big picture. So why is this important? Because we have available to us resources. We have people that are committed to the same purposes that we are. We have on websites, CSESA, which is the Superintendent's Association, has a bazillion different kinds of resources for arts education. We have research like crazy, and yet are we actually doing sequential, progressive, standards-based arts education pre-K through 12th grade for all children? Are we actually doing it? When we have CTE, are we bringing in the arts? Are we actually teaching mastery so that we can then use what we've learned for creative innovation and improvisation? In order to improvise, in order to innovate, you have to have mastery of information. You have to know what you're working with and then play with it, right? So when we have standards, we've had them for years, right? How many people have actually had kids that had, when they're in 8th grade, had pre-K through 7th grade, they've done all of the standards and mastered those skills by the time you have them in 8th grade, right? Have we had that? So have we been keeping our promise to the kids? Have we, actually? So what we know why the important arts are important. We have tons of research on that, years of research, states and national mandates for arts education. That arts are considered to be essential for education for all children, right? For educating the whole child. We have national state standards and resources, community resources. Great things have happened here. The Monterey Peninsula University Unified School District, Diffenbauer, he has done beautiful work with turnaround arts and Greenfield. We have what has happened here, which is amazing, with all the support that you've given from the county. And all of this that has happened. We know that it can happen. We know when people work together, we can do this. So what the problem is, and yet, the statistics in California are dismal. overall. Students who participate in the arts increased from 38 to 39%. Students with no access to the arts were overrepresented in charter schools. Students at schools who receive free or reduced lunch have lower participation rates in the art. And another group that had less access is English language learners because of remediation for language arts. And I'll tell you, the foster kids that I've worked with, which I worked with for many years in South Central, in middle school and high school, will tell me that they're routinely taken out of the arts so that they are having remediation in math and language. And it's almost either a punishment or it is making them feel like because they're stupid, right, they need this. And what happens is they're already overloaded and dysregulated. Then they cram information into an already overloaded brain without giving the tools to learn how to regulate their emotions, which the arts can actually do. So this is something that's actually creating more of a problem with no knowledge of the brain science behind being overloaded, overwhelmed, and stressed out. So reasons: budgets, time in the school day for instruction, A through G requirements, test prep, remediation, cost of hiring, time for training, time for collaboration. All of these are the reasons, but are these reasons real? And are they something that you should buy? And are they something that actually is something, is a good enough problem, if you will, a serious enough problem that would justify not doing what we know the kids need? And I think the answer is no. The answer is no, it isn't. So how do we think creatively? Now, how are we going to teach creativity to our kids if we're not thinking creatively? If we're so overloaded with our stress that we're just getting through the day and going through one thing and another and defaulting to the familiar. So we have to be able to walk our talk. That's what today's talk is all about. So what is our purpose? What is our purpose for our children? And what is the world that they are walking into, the future? So what we know is that we're approaching the time when machines will be able to outform humans at almost any task. Society needs to confront this question before it's upon us. If machines are capable of doing almost any work humans can do, what will humans do? What can we train our kids to be able to do so they have jobs in the future? We know they will have multiple careers, multiple jobs. How do they deal with change, with flexibility, not be defined by only one thing? What are the skills that cross all different domains? And I will tell you, it's not your GPA score, it's not your stat score, and it's not your skills in any particular domain. It is the skills that cross them, right? And so one thing that machines and AI cannot do is think and learn in terms of creative play the way that a human can, right? And so we need to know how to prepare our kids for the jobs of the future. I pulled this study up that I'll talk about in a second, but the skills that we know that we've called the 4 C's have to be unpacked and thought about as we would with any subject, with backwards planning. Creativity is number 1. Critical thinking is number 2. Collaboration, communication, 4 C's. I would add curiosity and consciousness, but those are the ones that are considered the 4 C's. But even so, we want to unpack and operationalize terms. In other words, as teachers, as educators, how would we know we have achieved this? How would you be able to assess the fact that your second graders are listening to each other and responding empathically? Can you do that? I'd say yes, you can. You can do that in any area. And what I've divided is the 21st century skills into creative thinking, critical thinking, self-awareness, and empathy as 21st century skills. But you can do these as a way to then have an umbrella that it can include anything in a common core, an art area, and academic area, if you want to be teaching to these skills. But these skills will not happen just because we're teaching a particular subject, including the arts. Just playing in orchestra is not going to necessarily lead to empathy, will it? As a matter of fact, for most kids that are trained in the arts in a very, kind of like really super focused way, and those of you who've taken lessons like me know, we're pretty isolated, right? It's not necessarily about empathy unless we teach with that in mind. Everything that Jack is going to be talking to you about the new standards, are about how you teach. It's pedagogy. So we need to learn how to teach to these skills. And so the Google study that I pulled up is very recent, and it's telling of the future. Because Google looked at all their top employees and the people that they hired, and they had the top skills that would lead to somebody doing well at Google and being hired at Google. And here they are: being a good coach, communicating and listening well, possessing insights into others, including different values and points of view, having empathy toward and being supportive of one's colleagues, being a good critical thinker, being a good problem solver, and being able to make connections across complex ideas, which is another way to say creativity. STEM expertise was the dead last. So if we say that our kids have the STEM expertise and will be able to get jobs in tech, are we telling them the truth? They need more than that, okay? The team study was similar. Now, again, when you think about project-based learning and you look at the teams, how are you assessing this? Are you assessing this? Are you having the kids be conscious of this? Emotional safety, confidence in speaking up and making mistakes, equality, generosity, curiosity, empathy, and emotional intelligence. Okay? These are all the skills that cross everything. They cross into success in any area. So all are taught most effectively and directly through sequential and integrated arts instruction. And again, sequence, progressively scaffolded with gradual integration into other subjects as we move from pre-K through 12. Findings from research very quickly: the arts make important economic contributions. And Jack and I were just talking that now, as I was saying, in therapy, we're training therapists to do expressive movement and music, because we know that all of the arts are essential for brain development in children and also healing early trauma. So there are jobs now that are going to be needing the art skills and vice versa, and training. But also there's remediation for grown-ups going on now. I've been training doctors in jazz improvisation because they don't know how to relate to their other humans, you know? And corporations are paying thousands of dollars to do, to do improvisation as part of their team building. They're doing arts in, because they didn't get it K-12, right? Teachers benefit from arts education, right? We all benefit. And teachers, and I mean when I say teachers, classroom teachers, as well as teaching artists and credentialed artists and professional artists. That's all of our team. Arts increase critical thinking skills. Exposure to art affects values and makes kids more empathic. It's a universal language, social cohesion. We learn how to collaborate through art and apply skills to other areas. That's transfer again. Art teaches unique habits not taught by other subjects, right? Which is the intrinsic value of the arts. And it's an important complement to test preparation and improves cognitive attention and memory skills, which all of this has research backing to it, which if anybody wants the actual studies, I have them. I wanted to add this because I wanted to talk about something we don't always hear about: post-truth. We're in a post-truth era. 2016, it was the Oxford Dictionary Word of the Year. That means if objective facts are not being taken as a basis for decisions and judgment, we are being manipulated by emotions, right, and by beliefs. That means that we need to train our kids to be able to read emotions, to be able to separate emotions and beliefs from critical thinking skills and evidence. We need to teach them how to separate propaganda from truth. We need to teach those critical thinking skills. Reading and managing and regulating emotions, critically questioning our assumptions, and speaking truth to power are crucial skills as individuals and citizens for the integrity of our democracy. And that is a serious thing right now. And critical protections also against manipulation, oppression, and abuse. So how do we help with the Me Too? We don't just talk about Me Too. We learn how to speak up. We learn how to, not just self-expression, but how to speak up, especially when we're under stress and in fear. How do we teach these skills? Now, again, a voice for the voiceless. This is what the arts do. The art, that's why I said conscience. The arts are the reflection of humanity's conscience. So we are talking about oppression. We're talking about our history. We're talking about equality. We're talking about dehumanization through language can be unpacked and looked at through the arts, and also, of course, that's an English language, study experiment together with history. And again, if you think thematically and then you link these together, it's powerful for the kids. And then move it into project-based learning. So also, I just want to say this about trauma. Kids who've had repeated trauma, including abuse, neglect, or insecure and disorganized attachment, leading to emotional deficits and being easily overloaded, not only put those children at a disadvantage in terms of social and emotional skills, but also the cognitive skills necessary for learning the basics of a core academic curriculum. And if those skills are not taught or developed directly, or through a sequential, integrated, and interdisciplinary arts education program, as part of every school curriculum, many foster youth, as well as others who are at risk or vulnerable, are left unequipped for success in the 21st century workplace, even if they graduate. And this is the truth. So we have to remember what training, if well done in the arts, can actually provide our students for their success in school, after school, as leaders, as creators, innovators, parents, partners, and citizens. This is our purpose, is what I'm explicating here. And it's not just feeling great, and it's not just self-expression or play, which is hugely important, but it's bigger and more important than that. And again, everyone here already is committed to that, but how do we recommit to that? And then think about, in our actions every day, are we living according to this? Are our choices in terms of curriculum, how we spend the time, how we spend our money, connected to that? So when we talk about college, workplace, and world ready, are we telling the truth to our kids? Are we really doing that? And can we do better? Now, this is not something that's impossible. So we can tilt the windmills. Look, Hamish came up to me and said, I have a dream, and I'm going to just take everything you said and make a school. It is exactly what Nancy said in Field of Dreams. Build it, they will come. And she came in, and everybody said, okay, we're going to do it. So it can happen. So what is needed? All right, training in visual performing media arts standards, the new ones, focusing on the creative process as well as art skills for classroom teachers, credentialed art teachers, and teaching artists. So this is linking through pedagogy with everyone working together. Then we're going to need training in how to link the arts to Common Core standards, other academic areas, and CTE through integrative pedagogy and collaborative projects, and assessments at all levels, which it can be done. This can be done through focus on creative thinking, critical thinking, self-awareness, and empathy as 4 areas of student learner outcomes. Sequence scaffolded curricula in all art forms individually, and then integrated and project-based, pre-K through 12th grade for all students, especially those who are at risk, have experienced trauma, twice exceptional, which, if you don't know what that means, that's gifted, and kids who have learning issues, and special needs. Thoughtful links to professional artists, organizations, parents, continual collaboration, and administrative support for teachers to be able to do this. Remembering that training, discipline, practice, structure, and constraints are necessary for creative, imaginative, combinatory play and mastery in any field. That means practice and mastery in these basics give us the ability to play with them as the kids grow older and more sophisticated, as well as the ability to let go of assumptions and truths and tolerate the disruption that is part of curiosity, wonder, questioning, growth, learning, and transformation. So remember that the brain, mind, body system is absolutely in resistance to change and doesn't like it. On the other hand, we are totally wanting it, and we are absolutely loving to question and discover and continue to create. So we have to learn to tolerate disruption and the discomfort in order to continue to transform. So teachers, principals, administrators have creative improvisers. That's what we all need to live this, right? And be creative together. A note about computers and technology. Computers are a tool but do not teach creative or critical thinking. Sensory hands-on learning comes first, so we need to really be thinking about our pre-K, K, and elementary. Studies show that there are drops in creativity when you eliminate the arts from tech. And remember, the employers are looking for skills related to arts learning like pattern perception, flexibility, teamwork, trained attention, patience, people reading skills, character, ability to write, read, and comprehend across the board. And thorough arts training does not need a huge budget, just thoughtful teaching and creative use of resources. So it's not about money. You can have a lot of money. It's what you do with it, right? So just a few quick things that you can imagine how much money this costs. And all of these I've used as prompts for writing, for acting, for stories, for storytelling, like this one. You wouldn't believe what the kids came up with this one. And poems, and what happened right here, tell me, and all kinds of things came up about shootings and gangs in their neighborhood and death. I mean, it was very powerful, and it cost like $0, right? Okay. So that's another one. And again, McDonald's. So again, making the ordinary extraordinary, seeing things differently, the eyes of an artist. You don't need money for it, right? It's how you see it. You can walk down the streets and look at fences and doors. This is a favorite one. It's called Cashew. But again, there's so much in it. This is another one, and that I love. Yeah, okay. And you can see what you can do with these, right? And the kids, it's amazing. And this one is for all of us. You have to think about it. It's everyone's dream, right? We're going to be that iceberg, right? Okay. So to neglect the contribution of the arts in education, either through inadequate time, resources, or poorly trained teachers, is to deny children access to one of the most stunning aspects of their culture and one of the most potent means for developing their minds. So to close here, ikigai is a Japanese word whose meaning translates roughly to reason for being, encompassing joy and a sense of purpose and meaning, sense of well-being. It roughly means the reason you get up in the morning. So why do we get up in the morning? Why are you all here? Why do you do your jobs? We don't do this for the money. We don't do this for the fame, right? You do it because you love kids. You do it because of your heart. You do it because of your care. That is why you do this. Otherwise, you would not be in this profession. You certainly wouldn't be here now, right? That is why we're here, one way or another. So back to the Good Samaritan. The first question which the priest and the Levite asked was, if I stopped to help this man, what would happen to me? The Good Samaritan reversed the question. If I do not stop to help this man, what will happen to him? So when we're under stress, it's me, right? The creative thinking is him. What about him? What's going on with him? What can I do for him? Being seen, heard, and believed in by a caring adult is the most important thing we can offer as educators. So, so what I want to say is really fast. So I was at this high school in South Central, and a kid kept coming in late. The vice principal was putting him into detention for being late all the time, and he was like not paying attention, and he was not focused, and he wasn't doing his work. And then we did a professional development about all of this, and he called me up and he said, well, this was happening, but I decided to ask him what was going on. It turns out this kid was finding new ways to get to school every day because there were gangs all over that were trying to recruit him because his older brother was in a gang. And he was finding all these creative ways to get there, but he was exhausted by the time he got there, and he was always late. And so the vice principal started giving him some time between when he got there to rest, and give him a little rest. And then he started drawing. And so then he started moving him into the art class. So then he moves into graphic design, right? And so all of this happened because he paid attention and asked questions, right? And he didn't just simply make an assumption, right? So this kid was, one thing he said was, I found a way, that no one would find me. I found a place where no one could find me. And he said, it was great, no one could find me. And then he said, what if no one can find me? And so Winnicott is a child psychoanalyst that I love that has this quote, it's a delight to be hidden, but a disaster not to be found. Our children find ways to hide. We all find ways to hide in many ways, being perfect, being good, being in trouble, causing, there's lots of ways to razzle-dazzle and hide, but we're all desperately wanting to be found and to be seen by another and for someone to see us. So what I want you to think about is that when you're stressed, when you're getting too busy, when you find yourself irritated, frustrated, angry, or just going like, I just got to get this done, to stop, consciously get in your body, slow down, and then look and see who's around you, who is in front of you, what's going on, and bring your critical thinking in through curiosity and ask questions. And then think who's around you for help, collaboration, communication, creative thinking, critical thinking, all can come in a moment, and then think about the resources that are available to you and what you really can do. Realign with your purpose. Like, what can I do right now that is the best for this child and for them moving into the world? So this is our purpose, to bring have every child fulfill that sense of joyful living and vitality and a sense of purpose themselves and a contribution they have to make to the world. Every kid I work with who's been traumatized said, I don't think it matters whether I live or die. I don't think anyone cares. It won't make a difference. I want to give something, but I don't know what to give. They all want to give something. It's creative giving, sense of agency. So with that, hopefully that'll inspire you to want to really take the work that you're already doing to the next level and all work together, utilize the resources available, which so many people have worked so hard for, and all these incredible facilities that have been created. And with that, I just want to thank you very much.
And thank you, Dr. Stevens. I know that she's got to rush off and hopefully make an air flight to Southern California that leaves in less than an hour. We want to continue along with the program. Again, to remind folks that we are live. We're live streaming and we're live broadcasting. And we want to get into the next sequence and make sure that everybody is ready. I was introduced really to the new standards for the arts last week at a CESESA meeting. And frankly, when I got a look at the scope and the amount of work that needs to be done for our students and to make the art experience so much better, I was just absolutely blown away. So I asked Jack, an old friend who is also part of all of this years ago. He helped us get some grants and so forth that were very much a part of what this is. So I asked Jack to come and give us a brief presentation of what we will be experiencing next year. And as a matter of fact, I think July 16 is the first time some of this will actually roll out. I think it's going to be spectacular. I can't wait to get going on it. But right now, let's have Jack Mitchell from the California Department of Education, our lead for Visual and Performing Arts Secondary.
Thanks, Hamish. Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure to come to Monterey County, especially to be in this facility, because as Hamish said, when he had this idea, he and I were talking, and there just happened to be at that time a facilities grant coming out from the state that provided some, at least initial funding for this project. So it's wonderful to be back here with Hamish and his colleagues and also in this beautiful space. I'm Jack Mitchell. I'm the consultant for secondary visual performing arts, and I'm also the career technical education consultant. And Vicki is the inspiration. I am the information. So I'm not the inspirational part of this program, and there will be no confusion about that, I'm sure, when I'm done. I have 30 minutes to share with you at least a 40-minute presentation and probably something more like a couple of hours about the new standards. And I wanted to start with a slide that says, change is good. Okay, change is good. One of the challenges we have in education is that we don't all believe that change is good. Okay, and when something like new standards come along, our immediate response is, oh no, what do I have to do now? Okay, and so the department made me take that slide out, by the way. Change is not good, is not approvable by the department. But so I wanted to talk today about what we are going to talk about. So we just completed the process of doing a draft of the standards, and we'll talk about who was involved in that in a minute. But today we're going to talk about the legislation that required California to do new standards in visual and performing arts. And that legislation required that they be patterned after the National Core Art Standards. And so we'll talk a little bit about the National Core Art Standards. I was fortunate enough to be on the theater writing team for the National Core Art Standards. And so I'm very familiar with the process that those teams in each arts discipline went through and how we came to the National Core Art Standards. So if you have questions about where did they get that, if it's in theater, I can help you with that. The California process, and the California process is a legislated process. It's not an open process where we go, let's bring 15 people together and decide what the new standards will look like. The law says you must have 20 people. The law says the meetings must be open. The law says we're covered by Bagley-Keene, which means you can't have side conversations. So the people who came together to talk about the standards couldn't talk about the standards even to their colleagues outside of the meeting room, okay? Because that would be an unconstituted meeting. So we'll talk about the process, the shifts in the new standards, samples of NCAS standards, and then next steps as the work goes forward. And there are several slides that I'm just going to pass over because, as I say, it's a longer conversation and we only have time for a certain amount of it. This is the legislation, AB 2862, and you can read it right there. And the most important part of this is where it says that the standards must be based on the National Core Art Standards, because the initial standards that we had in 2002 did not have to be based on any pre-existing set of standards, but these did. Okay? So I want to start with a very quick opening activity, and we took about 5 minutes to do this when we did it in Sacramento, but we'll take about a minute. I'll really just ask you to think about how you currently use standards in your work, in the work that you do. Okay? I taught for 22 years, and for the first 15 years, I had no idea that there were standards in the arts. Okay? I taught out of a district-approved curriculum guide, and that curriculum guide was designed around the standards, but I didn't have any personal connection to the standards. I had a very personal connection to the curriculum guide. Okay? And so, but now we're asking that teachers be familiar with and connected to the standards. So think about how you use the standards, how they impact you, and we would do a pair share activity, but I think we're going to move through that. But be thinking of that as we talk about this. Okay, we want to start with the NCAS. National Core Art Standards are the NCAS. All right, and the NCAS were created. It began in 2011 when the people like myself from each state. It's called CDA, State Education Agencies, Directors of Arts Education. The people like at the Department of Education level, we meet once a year and we have monthly phone calls. And that year when we met, one of the people said, last time we addressed art standards nationally was 1992. Has anything changed since then? This was 2011. So it became pretty clear pretty quickly that there was consensus around revision of the standards. And so a long process began that ended in 2014, 2011 to 2014. A coalition was formed to weigh in and guide the creation of the new standards. And you can see the various arts organizations were part of that. The College Board played a really critical role, which we'll talk about in a second. But it was not just a single group of people. It was a large coalition of people, all of whom weighed in. And as you can imagine, a process that California did in 6 meetings over 3 months took 3 years to do. So the National Core Art Standards were developed over 3 years. There were content standards writing teams of, it says 10 to 12, but the theater team I know had 15 people on it, and the media arts team had even more people on it. But there were representatives from each of the states that you see on the map. The unique thing about California is that we had at least one member of each discipline-specific writing team. Okay, so states like Louisiana and Wyoming didn't have anyone on the writing teams. But most of the states had a person on dance, or they might have 2 people on media arts, but California had a writer on each team. And so that's why when you look at the new standards, at the NCAS standards, there's a lot of similarity with California standards. Okay, these are the people who were involved. Some of you may know. I know some of you know Armelin. A lot of you know Chris Alexander. My name is up there, Dane Olson from Los Angeles, Shauna Habel, and these were all California members of the various writing teams. Okay, the process, as I say, took 3 years. There were over 1,000, they went out to public comment 3 different times. And when that public comment came back, the comment was taken seriously, and the standards that we had written to that point were completely revised based on that commentary. And as you can see, 1,056,000 responses and comments. 65% of the comments were from California educators. And so California had a very large role in the national standards, not only by writing team members, but by the number of comments on the draft standards when they went out to comment. Okay, so the national standards, if you have a lot of time on your hands, you can read the conceptual framework. Better to wait till the California standards come out, because there will be a framework associated with those as well. But the conceptual framework was what we, the NCAS writers, used to put these standards together. And I'm not sure whether it was tonight or maybe Vicki talked about backwards design. And the process we used was the Wiggins and McTighe backwards design theory. And so when you see the layout of the standards, it'll become more clear. The College Board was integrally involved in this process. They had members at each of the writing team meetings, and they also served as sort of a dramaturg for the group, in the sense that they provided us with samples of international standards. We spent time going over the Australian standards, the standards that they had in the UK, and the College Board was responsible for pulling all of that together. They also provided strategies for us for connecting for designing standards that were aligned to the Common Core standards as well, because they had a tremendous hand in those standards. And the new standards are all about artistic literacy. And artistic literacy, the knowledge and understanding required to participate fully in the arts, okay? To respond, connect through symbolic and metaphoric forms, etc. And this is the format that's used in the National Core Art Standards. And you can see that it is sort of a backwards design format. We began with artistic literacy foundations, both philosophical foundations and lifelong goals for arts literate students or arts literate individuals. We identified artistic processes, and you can see that they mirror the current California processes, and then a series of both anchor standards and content level standards. So artistic literacy, and then artistic processes, creating in California, we have creating, performing, responding. We have historical and cultural context and connecting. And they eliminated historical and cultural context because that was part of connecting in the collaborative's vision. Okay, we move through some of these quickly. Okay. So the National Core Art Standards are lifelong learning. They're composed of anchor standards, enduring understanding, essential questions, anchor standards, and performance standards. And they're intended to guide curriculum. So they are used to determine what your students need to know and be able to do at the end of the day. This is a pretty in-depth slide, but it talks about the philosophical foundations versus the lifelong goals for people who have accomplished mastery of the standards. One of the things we talked about in the connecting part was community engagement, but also careers. And the California standards, when they come out, you will see, and they will be available for you to review on July 16th. Okay, the draft will be available on July 16th. I won't be showing you examples of those because that would be outside of Bagley-Keene, and we're not allowed to do that. So, but in the California version, there is also a section on the arts as career. Okay, and they're designed around artistic processes, creating, performing, and responding. And those were the ones that are pretty much universal globally. In almost every country's set of standards, they deal with performing, creating, and responding. In California, the California people on each of those committees said, well, what about connecting? In California, that connecting piece is critical, and we need to be sure that there is connecting in there. And so the NCAS and the new California standards will also have connecting in 3 of the disciplines. In music and visual art, connecting is embedded. So the process components are also broken down. So creating is a multiple staged process. So first you have to envision or conceptualize and then develop as part of creating. Performing involves rehearsing and then the actual sharing of the performance. And of course, performing has different iterations in the different arts disciplines. So artists, visual artists don't actually perform, but they present. Media artists produce, okay? But all of that is part of performing. And then responding is broken into reflecting, interpreting, and critiquing. And the California standards are organized around these components and subcomponents. And connecting is interrelating, and empathizing. And empathizing was one that the California people fought very hard for. As you heard Vicki talk about, one of the most valuable things we teach as arts teachers is that ability to see from another perspective, to see another person's point of view. And there were a lot of folks on the writing teams who didn't feel like empathizing was something that was within the purview of arts instruction. And many of the California people on the committee said it is the core of arts instruction, is building the capacity in students to empathize. So you're going to see this when you see the new art standards. There will be process standards for performance standards for each of the subgroups as well. So there are anchor standards across all, and the anchor standards are common across all disciplines. So the anchor standard for creating in visual art is going to be exactly the same as the anchor standard for creating in music. All right? And this was a big challenge as writing teams to come up with and agree on these anchor standards. And so the anchor standards were revised a number of times, but they are common across the arts disciplines and they unify the standards. we also began with the Wiggins and McTighe with enduring understandings and essential questions. So each of the new standards will begin with an enduring understanding that all students should understand this at the end of their arts careers, and then a question that guides pedagogy. In what do students who have accomplished this standard need to know? And then what we traditionally call the standards themselves are the performance standards. And those are the standards that are unique to each discipline and unique within each artistic process. The standards are organized by grade level, just like the California standards are now. There was a lot of talk about grade banding the standards, but the California people said it's important for us to reinforce that the expectation of arts at each grade, and so we need to have standards for each grade level to achieve. There was concern if we grade banded the standards, K through 2, grade 2, everybody would be working like crazy to cram all those standards in. So we have grade level standards, and the California will be grade level standards. And then at the high school, we currently have, as you know, proficient and advanced standards. And in the new standards, we'll have proficient, accomplished, and advanced. And the reason we added an advanced in the California standards and the national is that if a high school student goes through 3 years of a particular discipline, what are they working towards in that 3rd year? And so what the groups did was sort of begin with the advanced standards with sort of an AP level approach to what would an AP kid need to know, what would that pre-college level be, and design standards around that. So the new advanced standards are for those students who have had multiple years in a given discipline. So here's an example of a standard. So we can take a minute and take a look at it. This is a theater standard, and it is the artistic process is create, and the component is develop. And the standard is employ vocal movement, technique to convey specific dramatic intention. Okay? Now think about the current standards for theater, if you're a theater guy, or the current standards in any discipline. And what do you notice about the standard, the actual performance standard, employ vocal and movement technique to convey specific dramatic intention? Yes?
There's no content. It's just the process.
Yeah. Employ vocal and movement technique around what?
Yeah.
Okay. And this is one of the major shifts in the new standards, is that the new standards identify the process that students will take. It is the teacher's responsibility to provide the content. Okay? And that provides tremendous flexibility for those of us who are secondary teachers and have expertise in our content. It is a real challenge for elementary school teachers, if they are generalist teachers, who don't have deep content knowledge. Okay, and so it's one of the things that we're going to have to provide professional development around. And here's another advanced standard. Research and synthesize cultural and historical information to support artistic choices. Again, where is the content? Okay, and the idea is that the instructor provides the content. There is flexibility in content. So if I'm teaching this in a particular area, I can be culturally responsive in the content that I choose, and I can still be sure that the students know how to research and synthesize cultural information to support their artistic choices. Okay, and so a couple of examples. Where am I time-wise? Do you know?
A few more minutes.
Jackie, okay. So here's a couple of examples. So take a second and look at those. These are both from visual arts. Use shading to transform a 2-dimensional shape into what appears to be a 3-dimensional form, or brainstorm multiple approaches to a creative art or design problem. Okay. What did you see? Anybody, anything anyone would like to say about this? Yes?
Well, it's a lot more open-ended and multiple ways of solving that problem rather than, okay, do this.
Right. Add shading to make it three-dimensional. Well, what else might you do? You know. So yes, I think that's one of the things you're going to see in the new standards is that California standards is they will be a lot more open-ended. Okay, we're not going to discuss with our partners. And then this is an example. One of the new things that was added, a separate piece of legislation, AB 37, said that the California standards would align with the national standards by also providing K-12 standards in media arts as a separate discipline. This does not mean that visual art can't have media arts in it. It does not mean that you can't do digital music. It doesn't mean that there can't be media in other artistic disciplines. But there are districts around the state that teach media arts as a unique discipline. And so there are now a set of standards for those districts that do that. So these are some examples of media arts standards that you can take a look at. Okay, so now a quick overview of the process. I talked about this as a legal process in California, and the way it goes is as follows. We begin with focus groups. People apply to be members of a focus group. Anyone here a member of a focus group before in the first round? Okay. The focus groups come together and talk about what the standards need to do. And the focus group commentary is pulled together to provide guidance for the people who are actually doing the writing of the standards. Those standards are then passed on to the Instructional Quality Commission, and the Instructional Quality Commission has the authority to change those standards in any way they want. They could, in fact, throw them all out, but then they would have a lot of work to do. So generally speaking, what happens is that the Instructional Quality Commission gets them and goes, these look good. And they move them onto the state board. The state board approves it. The legislation that required these standards said that the state board must approve or revise the standards by March 2019, by January 2019. So that's coming up. Okay? So the standards writing process has already taken place. Those standards will be available. They will be formally submitted to the Instructional Quality Commission the third week in July, and they will be available for you to see the second week in July because they're part of the agenda, and the agenda is public. And so you can go to that agenda and you can see what's being presented to the state board as the new California standards. To the Instructional Quality Commission. The Instructional Quality Commission makes any adjustments, and then they put them out to public review. And that's when any of you have the capacity to provide comment on the standards. The standards don't have any content. We want some, whatever your comment is, you are allowed to submit that in writing, okay? And as I mentioned with the national standards, there was a tremendous body of public comment, and all of that public comment was viewed, and there were major changes in the draft based on that comment. So I would urge all of you to, if you are interested in this standards creation process, make public comment, because the public comment doesn't go to those teams of writers, it goes directly to the state board. Because the last group that can make a modification to the draft is the state board. And so the public comment will probably close, I think they said that it closes November 1st, and then the comment is added into, is used to modify the standards, and the standards are presented along with the commentary to the state board. Okay? So that's our process. And here's a visual that shows how that works. We have completed the top row, we have completed the second row. We are now beginning work on the frameworks, and so there's a call for framework participants. I think it actually closed Friday, was it? Monday? Okay. The Standards Advisory Committee, 21-member committee. Okay, and the framework is the next process. So once the standards are approved, there will be a group that has already been selected, and as soon as the frameworks are approved in January, that group will begin writing the framework in March. And so by December of the following year, they should have a framework prepared to send to the state board. These are some websites that you can go to stay up to date on what's going on. And then this is my contact information, and Mary Rice is my colleague at the Department of Education who handles the elementary visual and performing arts, and she can answer questions about this as well. And hopefully we have a little time if there are questions that I can respond to. Yes?
Can you go back to the last slide, please? Thank you.
Yeah, that is in an unseeable blue, I'm sure that it, yes.
So, the subject area committee can only have 21 members, and there's 5 disciplines for each
Yes.
visual and performing arts, compared to math, where there's 21 people
Mhm.
writing math standards. So
Right.
we had to divide our 21 up.
Yes. And that was a pretty major bone of contention initially, but Mary Rice and I found out as consultants exactly what kind of power we had. It's legislate. I mean, they say 21, and so 21 is what you get. And so if you have multiple disciplines, and we added another discipline, so our working groups were groups of 4. There was one that had I think they were all working groups of 4. But there, in each of the working groups, there was elementary represented, middle school represented, and secondary, or 9 through 12 represented. So there were people who actually taught in that content area at that particular grade level. So it was the theater people were an amazing group of people, and they were very much in tune with the national standards. So there was very little modification. And I would say that, is there anybody who has gone to in-service on the National Core Art Standards as part of curriculum preparation? Okay, you don't have to worry, because the California standards are going to be very close to you don't have to say, oh, I got to get rid of all that now. No, you don't. There's going to be tremendous similarity. Most of what changed in theater, because I'm most familiar with those folks, was a little languaging, but there was no major intent changes. There was one where we thought one process really occurred before another, and so we moved that block of performance standards up. Yes?
Can you tell us anything generally about what changes in music and then visual arts?
I can tell you that the music people made minimal changes. The visual arts people made the most changes. But as each group made modifications, those modifications had to be approved by the whole group. Okay? And so theater would say, we want to add this language to this standard, and we would have to take that to the whole group of 21 and say, this was our reasoning, this is how we came up with this is how I know that the art people had more changes, because we had to look at more of their revision pieces. But I would say that those are the 2 disciplines that are going to have the most. And when you look at especially the National Core Art Standards versus the old California music standards, the music people had much, much more work to do than any of the other disciplines because of the way the National Core Art Standards were written. Other questions? Okay, I think that these standards are going to provide really exciting guidance for teachers. I think they are also going to make it possible for you to bring your creativity into the standards-based instructional process. But they will require that you look at your students in a new way, that you look at your students as the creators of art and as co-producers of art, not just as people who learn what you know. And so I think it's going to be a new era, a new generation, and we're currently talking about rollout and how we go about rollout, how we fund rollout, but the county offices will play a key role in that. And so I thank you for your time, and you're welcome to contact me. I think you took my email down, but it's real simple, jmitchell@cde.ca.gov, and I will answer any individual questions that I have. And I urge you to take a look at that on July 11th if you're interested, and you can see exactly what those groups came up with for the new, that they're putting forward for the new California Art Standards. Thanks very much.
Okay, thank you, Jay.
Well, I started here at Seaside High in 1990, and I've been here ever since, with the exception of 2 years when I moved to Germany between 93 and 95. And pretty much my whole career has been here. I've taught in Illinois when I first graduated from Northwestern University for a couple years, and then I came to California with my husband, who's in the Air Force, and we're going to be celebrating our 33rd anniversary soon. So we moved out here in 1989, and I started at Seaside High in 90. And like I said, almost my whole career has been here. It's been a really fun ride. I have such great memories of these kids, and I'd like to thank them for everything they've done for me all these years, and in the name of music. We've had a roller coaster ride with budget cuts and all kinds of things like that, and we've had wonderful things like lots of grant money coming in from the Hewlett-Packard Foundation. I'd like to thank them. The Star Foundation, they've helped us a lot. So we've grown inventory here at Seaside High. We've done everything from parades and field shows and community events through the history of the time. The kids have been serving the community with music ever since I've been here. We have an outstanding drum line, and I think that's all going to continue. And I'm looking forward to seeing the success of Seaside High when I'm gone. I can't thank the superintendent and all previous superintendents and principals and administration. A big shout out to Joan Kevorkian, who's been, no pun intended, instrumental in helping to get kids enrolled in music classes. I've worked with her for 8 years, and she's my hero, and I really want to thank her because she's made this music program what it is in working to get the kids enrolled. Because if you don't have kids, you don't have the music, you don't have groups. My students, I'm going to miss them tremendously. I know they'll carry on because music is in their hearts. My first year here in 1990, we took the band to Pismo Beach to a parade review, and we came back with the first place trophy. And there's been a lot of first place trophies in between the roller coaster ride. And then just recently, the orchestra went to Disneyland and came back with these trophies. This is a first place for Best Orchestra, and then this is a sweepstakes trophy for overall Best Orchestra out of all of the orchestras, including, different categories. And so, I have to say that the time that I spend with students outside of class, that's actually really, really what creates the memories the most. It's not everyday rehearsals, although those can be memorable too, but I really think just the trips that we spend that are spent doing a musical endeavor where the kids are working really hard and they want that goal to be achieved. They want to come back with something good, and it's kind of cool that was the first thing that happened my first year here, and then at the end. So sorry I'm crying, but I love these kids and I want to thank them for everything. It's amazing. I'm very, very honored, and I want to thank you very much.
She's always been available too at the last minute for different groups, CESA and all kinds of different groups, but she's always been available. This is to commemorate your, from the county office, okay. a plaque. This is also from the Monterey County Board of Supervisors, commemorating your work. This is from Ana Caballero, and you have one coming also from the state senator, Bill Mining. And that's our community recognizing. And good luck in your next venue. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Before I start with my teaching career, I just have to give a shout out to my teacher, Mr. Blanchard at Fremont Junior High and Judith J. at Monterey High School, who really encouraged me in the arts and gave me a lot of confidence as an actress in the school program at MPUSD, because I'm a product of MPUSD through and through. So when I went to MPC, I didn't expect to be a teacher at all. I just started going to school, and one thing led to another, and I decided to major in English and MPC, and then I went to San Jose State. While at San Jose State, I wanted to major in theater arts, but I couldn't because I had to work my way through college, and there was a lot of performance involved in being a theater arts teacher or theater arts student. So I didn't get to major in theater arts in college at San Jose State, just English. But then I got a job at Fitch Middle School in 1985. And they asked me to teach English and drama, because drama had always been my passion. And so I was teaching there for 6 years, and I was going to stay there forever, but the school was closing because the Ford Ord was closing, and they said, well, so Tad Kumagai, I did a talent show act at Sharky's Bar downtown, it's now turned 12, to raise money for Monterey High Baseball. It was a Madonna act, and it was very fun. And so Tad Kumagai saw me and said, hey, you should come teach drama at Colton. So when I got to Colton, I had 1 semester of drama, and then I had creative writing, and we just loved it so much we kept it drama. Basically, that's what I created for 27 years at Colton, 33 years total teaching. We've done, gosh, every show you can imagine. And this last show was very sweet because I was so honored with former students coming back. The school, my coach is really honoring me, the people, my staff members, Sherry DeLue, the other teachers. I don't even want to name everybody. I feel like I'm giving an Academy Award speech or something. I don't want to name everybody because there's so many people that supported me and have shown me such appreciation and honor this last month that it's just been overwhelming. And then our superintendent, PK Diffenbaugh, got up on the stage Saturday night and dedicated the stage to me, which means so much to me. And my coaches dedicated the prop room to me. There's a plaque up there dedicating my prop room with the costumes and props. So, you know, the arts are so important. And so many of my kids, one of them's a singer in New York City, one of them's a filmmaker. One of them's Nick Cunningham, who's the bobsledder, the Olympian, that said that he gave credit to the drama program for giving him confidence to go out and speak to reporters. So our kids need that in the public schools too. And I'm really proud of Colton for never cutting that, never making me feel like I wasn't important. And I'm gonna miss so much of it. And I hope to carry those arts on to other things. I've already got some books I'm gonna write about it, about the classroom and what I've learned. And I've done my own show, one-woman show, and I'm thinking about bringing that back. And helping in the arts any way I can, helping at Colton, helping in theater. So I may be retiring from MPUSD, but I'm not done, and I'm not dead, and I'm glad I didn't have to wait to die to get my name on that stage. And so basically, you haven't seen the last of me, because I'm still rooted in our community and helping with the arts. So thank you.
We would like to celebrate you. Yes, and Jackie Hope's right there too, the VAPA coordinator for MPUSD. Here you go from the county office and from the superintendent, commemoration of your great achievements. And this is from the Board of Supervisors. And this is from Ana Caballero. And you have one coming from the state senator as well. Okay, all the best. Thank you. Okay, now we'll shift to San Benito County, and we'll hear from Colleen Myers, who is the Director of Curriculum and Instruction in San Benito County. And come on down, Colleen. And there's some interesting and fabulous things happening in San Benito County.
Yes, we've had several exciting events this year. We're building our program. We're a very small county with 11 districts, 11,000 students, and so we are spread thin, but we try our best to reach every district. We have several rural. In fact, we have the smallest school district in the state in our county with only 4 students. That's Pinoche Elementary. And so we have the challenges of distance and communication and whatnot. So we do our best to get the information out to our districts and reach every child in every possible way, including the arts. So this year we had some exciting events. We do a lot of collaboration with the San Benito County Arts Council. And do I have a clicker?
Oh, certainly.
So we partner with them to bring some arts to the county, and those lovely ladies do a fantastic job. And one of them is our monthly workshops that we host for our teachers, and they bring in, this year and last year is wildly popular. We brought in different topics each month. As you can see, visual arts, arts and technology, music, poetry and theater, storytelling, dance and movement. And just as we heard earlier, trauma informed in the arts, and that was just held last weekend. Such a new, such an important cause, and so we're just getting into that there. So teachers are invited to come on a Thursday once a month and participate in visiting artists and some workshops and how to integrate that into their classrooms. And it's fantastic because you can have anywhere from TK to 12th grade instructors take advantage of that. Our second event that we host in San Benito County is our countywide student arts showcase. And this year we had nearly 100 or so people come. Almost every district participated. We did award students based on their artistic ability and their creativity and best of show. So we had participants from TK all the way to 12th grade. It's such a nice, wonderful evening showcase for the community. We have cookies and refreshments, and then we also just last year infused live performances. So we have student groups from the high school come, dance groups from the local community come, and it's such a wonderful event. Here's some examples there, just some amazing talents. We do a mixed media, so it's not restricted to any one type. That's where it's really nice to bring in the performance piece. So we look to, there we go, with the high school group and then some local dance groups too. So we look forward to expanding this next year. We're going to be changing up our teacher workshops. We're going to be going a little bit deeper and doing a more intense focus. So with the new standards and how they can infuse that in instruction and shifting that instruction to accommodate that creative thinking and all those important elements in our students. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Colleen. And now for a report from Santa Clara County, Janine Flores.
Thank you, Hamish. I need the clicker too.
You need the clicker.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, good evening, everybody. I am Janine Flores from the lovely Santa Clara County. So we had our Young Artist Showcase last night. San Benito had their art show. Ours was last night. We have 2 divisions. The high school division, we had 1,400 submissions. And in the K through 8, we had over 100. And then the picture on the left is from a student in 5th grade. And it was fireworks hearts or something. It was really cute. And it popped out. It's 3D. It's really hard to tell, but there. And I just was going to share with you what we've done this year. And the picture on the other side, you might see me in the back there. This is celebrating our strategic arts plan unveiling. And we went through this process that was adopted by the California Alliance for Arts Education to look at our programming and how we want to change to address the new National Core Art Standards and the needs of our students in Santa Clara. And so that's everybody celebrating with a lovely burnt almond cake. It's always good. All right, so this is our strategic arts plan. I brought some, so I saw some of you grabbed it. We're very proud of the work we did in here because we needed to address the Common Core standards and the National Core Art Standards and integration and how do we serve our students and teachers. So this plan addresses our work starting from January all the way to 2020. And we had lots of stakeholder input. We had parents, students, teachers, community members, teaching artists, local museums, our Artspiration leadership team. And Susan Freeman led our process and guided us through it, and she helped write it. So we revised our vision and mission a little bit, and it helped us name our goals and actions and such. I'm clicking, there we go. So we named 3 directions were named with our goals and actions and measurables. So that's the key piece that's different. And this is like Janine's grading, right? I have to look through this and see, am I on track? So in year 1, what should we have accomplished? Year 2, year 3, we went ahead and spelled it out. This is a real internal document, but it's on our website. And if you're into that strategic planning and want to know the nitty-gritty of what all that looks like, it's available. And yeah, it's been very helpful. And it helps me to say yes or no to things. And then we modify it as we go along if things change, and they always do, right? So after we developed our strategic plan, we've been working with Morgan Hill to write their strategic plan. Here's some of their artwork that they have in their district office. They have a vibrant Hill is just north of Gilroy, and it's one of our most southern districts. Here's our leadership team. Heather Nursement is the CTE and VAPA coordinator there. And we have the superintendent and assistant superintendent who were involved. And then we had over 25 people. We had teachers, we had students, we had elementary students, middle school students, high school students there putting input. What does the visual and performing arts look like in Morgan Hill? We even had the facilities director, the guy that makes all the buildings, and he's like, well, what if we take the libraries and make them innovation centers and the band can rehearse there, or we can have it for drama. So lots of creative ideas. They are on fire, so we wanted to highlight what they've been doing there. And they will be presenting that to their board in September, October this year. And then we felt there was a lot of holes. We don't know what's going on in our 31 districts. So we're creating district arts profiles. And this is Alum Rock School District, just as an example. They're on the east side of San Jose. And here's some of the visual art teachers and the professional development there from Alum Rock. And then we just wanted to see what was happening kindergarten to 8th grade in our school districts, because the California Arts Data Project, which is hosted by Create California, is awesome, and it's been very helpful in seeing the trends in our county, but we wanted to go a little deeper. So we've done this in a couple districts, and we are going to use that as a county resource, a regional resource, as well as a resource for the district to make informed decisions. Yeah. So I wanted to mention the Create California convening. I'm hosting with the Create California, and I'd like to invite everybody. This is for leadership in the arts. The first day will be at the beautiful Montalvo Arts Center to get inspired. And it's on October 15th and 16th. It took me an hour and 10 minutes to get here. So it's not too long. And then the second day will be at a hotel near the San Jose airport. And it's going to be really great to learn about how we can support the changes in California. We will be addressing the standards, and the public will campaign for Create California. And then Jack mentioned the public comments for the new visual and performing arts standards. We will be hosting the framework focus group at the Santa Clara County Office of Education, so I invite you to come up and look at all our beautiful artwork, as well as participate as a public comment portion of the framework focus group. The focus group window has closed, but it's on August 22nd, and it's from 4 to 6. And we have great things going on. We're just strategizing, and we want to make sure that we're not just going in there, doing an arts PD and leaving. We want to say, well, what's our end goal? Are we doing integration? Do we want a subject-specific support? So supporting our teachers and our students that way. And lastly, I will mention our other regional partner, Santa Cruz. We have created this integrated learning lesson plan template. It's a mouthful. I'm hoping to change its name to Charlie or something simple. But all these organizations, we've been meeting for the past 3 months, and we've created an interactive and integrated lesson plan that has the core art standards. It has the national core art standards. It looks at the studio habits of mind. It looks at the 4 C's and the depth of knowledge. And it's a tool for our teaching artists who are servicing our students, as well as classroom teachers. And this August, we're going to do an internal training so we all know how to use it well, so we can disseminate it. And next year, we hope to open it up to all of Region 5 and grow this program and have this shared leadership and shared voice in Santa Clara and Santa Cruz and all of Region 5. So, and that's my contact information if you want to get a hold of me. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Janine. We had one more presentation, and that was from Santa Cruz County, but Audrey Sirota could not be here. So I think due to the time, what we will do is we will make Santa Cruz County's presentation, their slides will be available on our webpage, and that's MCAETtv.org, and all of this. The proceedings will be on MCAETtv.org. I would be remiss if I didn't thank our crew, Chuck and all the great guys, Chuck and Tom and Jack and Addie and Kent for putting this all together, and the students that have helped from Millennium that are on camera. And again, to remind you that this is live, that it has gone out and it continues to go out to the community. With that, I think probably we will have a slate. I see Chuck coming in very quickly. A slate to indicate that we are perhaps at the end of the show. And again, thank you very much. And there are some cookies and things available next door so we can kind of talk amongst ourselves. And frankly, this has been quite a long day for us, but very informative and productive. Thanks to Rob and all the rest of the folks that are here, Melissa from the charter school. Okay, thanks again.
Gill. I am a graphic designer and owner of Central Coast Sign and Design. I got started in this field. I didn't know what I wanted to do out of high school. I thought I was going to be going into the military just because I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't have the best grades. I ended up going to Hartnell, and I took a lot of art classes just because that's all I knew, and that's what I was always told I was good at. I then got recommended to go see Jerry Namiro here at Hartnell about a graphic design field. I didn't know what it was. I did head out there and talk to her, and I fell in love with this thing called a computer, which I'm feeling pretty old now when I'm talking about this. I hadn't touched a computer until I was about 24, 25 years old. And I started going to classes, took a Photoshop class, and fell in love with it. I would go to class, and I'd start, learning stuff, and then this internet thing was out, and we had dial-up, and we probably remember more than they would, but you had to connect your phone line and hear this beeping sound when the internet would, trying to get the internet up. But I remember I was in class, and I loved to draw, and then someone told me, like, hey, you can go into this internet thing. You can go to yahoo.com and type in Photoshop tricks. And I remember doing that for the very first time, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. There's so many tutorials on how to do more advanced things than what I was learning in class. And once I started doing that, I felt kind of advancing a little bit more. And I show up to class, and I show my work, and the teacher would be, if anybody knows Jerry at Hartnell College, she's amazing. And she started going crazy, like, oh, this is wonderful. And she told the class, and I was like, oh, this is pretty neat. I'm doing something okay. I kept on doing that and kept on going home. And I finally bought my first computer. When I got my first computer, I was doing that, and I'd stay up till 2, 3, 4, 5 in the morning and just looking up stuff and learning. And I was that excited about it. I loved it. I was able to get my drawing abilities and then implement it with the computer and graphic, get into the Photoshop. And that's when I fell in love with it. I kept on going to school, and then I transferred to CSUMB. I went there for a while, and I ended up working for a .com when the whole .com thing was doing pretty good. Started making some pretty good money, and I did that. And then after that, the .com closed. I ended up I always knew I kind of wanted to do my own business, so I started Guild Design Company. I just started freelancing from home. I then fell into the sign company. It's a long story, but it fell into my lap, and I got in partners with a couple people. After a while, I ended up buying them out, and I had Central Coast Sign Design. And once I did that, the whole digital full color printing started. I knew that was going to be the future back then, right? And I would just do simple vinyl. Once I started the Photoshop with full color digital printers, we were the first sign company around to have it here in Salinas. It just opened the doors to a lot more possibilities, and that's when we were able to use Photoshop to its full extent, which is pretty amazing. We started doing that, and it was pretty fun, and it's been evolving ever since.
That I personally have been working on is trying to get our districts, all 24 of them, to recognize that they do need a visual and performing arts coordinator or somebody in charge of the program. Over the past few years, we have been very fortunate in that 3 of our larger districts have embraced the concept of having somebody lead in the visual and performing arts. And one of those areas happens to be the largest of our school districts. And she's here today talk a little bit about some fantastic achievements that are going on in the Monterey Peninsula Unified School District. And it's a tremendous pleasure for me to introduce the Visual and Performing Arts Coordinator from MPUSD, Jackie Hope.
Thank you, Hamish. My name is Jackie Hope. I am the Visual and Performing Arts Coordinator for Monterey Peninsula Unified School District. We serve approximately 10,000 students in 3 cities, about 20 schools, and we are in Monterey, Seaside, and Marina. Of those 10,000 students, about 7,000 of them are socioeconomically disadvantaged. 3,000 are English language learners. 1,500 are special ed students from moderate to severe. About 1,100 foster students, and at any given time, about 1,000 homeless students. Our students are also brilliant, creative, kind, and resilient, and deserving of a good education. So there is great inequity in our county, with the highest per student funding at almost $17,000, and a lot of the other schools, districts, at around 8,000. It makes a difference. It's really hard to replicate the student experience with such a discrepancy. And unfortunately, across the nation, the determinant of student achievement that you most find is parental income. I don't want this to be the case, but in study after study, parental income dictates student achievement. This is mostly because your parental income dictates where you live and also the schools you go to and the types of resources and opportunities that are at your disposal. But we're pushing back against this. At MPUSD, and I know at a lot of our schools, we're pushing back against this. We are trying to make excellence in our schools, provide excellence for our students as well. We have many initiatives to improve instruction. We're also doing our best to strengthen student-teacher relationships, and we're expanding the opportunities that we provide for our students. LCAP funding was a great boom for us. We were able to hire more music teachers. Now we have music instruction weekly for kindergarten through 5th in music theory, singing, beginning percussion, and recorder. Then from 4th grade to 12th grade, we provide the instruments, and it's optional instrumental instruction, band and orchestra. We have some Next Generation Jazz Festival participants in our schools and some regional leads in strings and in band. We've dramatically increased our reliance on community partnerships. The Peninsula has great organizations, arts organizations that I became familiar with when working for the Arts Council for Monterey County before this position. One of them is Tandy Beal and Company, always exciting. They bring international dancers. So our 3rd graders all across the district are getting 10 weeks with Tandy Beal, learning movement, learning a little bit about cultural and geographical bits of all around the world. And then at the end, there's an exciting performance with dancers from Serbia and Croatia and the Congo and Argentina. Lots of different countries are represented. We also have musicals after school, and we're using our Title I funding for that at our Title I funded sites. For schools that do not receive Title I funds, we found a grant because we just really need to have musical theater available to as many students as possible. Like the speaker said before me, it brings in parents, it activates so many different parts of the student mind. In our high school, we're piloting a program with our local community college where the community, it's a dual enrollment program. The community college provides the adjunct instructor and teaches our students theater at our sites. And this is an area of potential growth that we're definitely going to be looking into in the future. This year, Dance Kids invited 600 of our 1st graders to attend the Nutcracker. Next year, they're going to do it again, and also the Symphony has invited our entire 3rd grade class from 11 different schools to attend the Symphony. Eco Ambassadors is an arts integrated science program using art teachers from the Arts Council for Monterey County and science teacher from Return of the Natives at CSUMB. They're learning about local environmental conditions and pollinators and building native habitat gardens. And beyond partnering with organizations, we're also hiring professional art teachers to come to the schools in a lot of different areas. This keeps us nimble, so determine whether or not the state has funds one year or has fewer funds the next year, whether we get a grant one year, we don't get a grant the next year, we can hire based on a contract with independent contractors that have all the business licenses and are able to provide for large classrooms. This is just a really key way that we can have a robust program. So we're building a culture of arts appreciation. Our exhibits and our performances are well attended. Parents are coming to the school. They're providing input on what murals we're putting on the walls. They're doing our art nights. One of our schools is a nationally recognized turnaround art school, so we have events related to that. In fact, Jackson Brown is coming to one of our sites very soon, I can't say when. And that, is building excitement and draws parents to the sites. And what I want to encourage my fellow districts that are not funded as well as they should be is that with careful allotment of funds, with constant advocacy, both within your district and to anyone who will listen, with partnering with anyone that will come to the table, all these wonderful arts groups that are out there, and with teaching artists, you too can have a robust arts program for your district and your students.
So I'm the managing partner of Boots Road Group. We are a marketing communications firm, and we serve people who are making the world a better place. We do advertising, public relations, web development, and social media. And as I say, we feel like we have a mission to use those skills to help make the world better, and those are the only clients we take on, are ones that we can really put our heart into. And I'd say that's kind of the through line for my life, going back to when I was a kid. I started out as a rock guitar player, which I know is the very first thing that would occur to you when you look at me. And that was my first career. I was a professional musician for a number of years, and my brother and I got signed to Warner Chappell Music, which is it's part of the Warner Brothers entertainment empire, as songwriters, and then I became a producer. And over the years, I've worked in, I think, pretty much every form of media. I started writing music for other people, doing show themes and things like that, and then I became a journalist, doing freelance journalism for the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation, which is the national broadcaster in Canada. Ended up doing journalism on a similar basis for National Public Radio and the Associated Press and other journalistic organizations. Worked through kind of the history of multimedia in Silicon Valley, starting out with CD-ROMs way back when, and interactive television at Silicon Graphics, computer games at a company called Silicon Gaming, a really innovative web technology at a company called Beatnik, where we did interactive music on the web starting back I started with them around 1999, working with David Bowie and Moby and Santana and a bunch of, as well as corporate partners like Yahoo and Sony and a bunch of folks doing interactive sound on the web. I stumbled into politics after we moved to the Monterey area and worked with Congressman Farr, other local political candidates, and that eventually led to working on President Obama's presidential campaigns as part of the communication team working in what are called battleground states. So that's and now I have this company, Boots Road Group, with my partner here, Lynn, who's our creative director, and Boots Road Group kind of pulls together all of this kind of experience in my background and Lynn's background, and we've sort of discovered that you can do creative work and also serve a larger cause at the same time. And that's what makes our work so deeply satisfying. And that's what brings me back to what I would say is the through line in this otherwise crazy looking career path. I would not recommend anybody try to replicate that career path. I did not know what I was doing, okay? But it all worked out really well. And here's what linked it all together. And this is something that gets lost, especially in the modern world where it's we think of ourselves as so sophisticated and often ironic and cynical. And it becomes embarrassing to be open and vulnerable and to unironically say that you believe in something. But here's what I believe in. The path to happiness is through love. And it is opening, and the reason we have such a hard time doing it is that if you are open to loving people and loving things, you're going to get hurt. And it hurts so much that we try to protect ourselves from it. But if you find work you love and serve it, don't worry so much about how do I become successful? How do I convince people to hire me? Find work you love and do it as well as you can possibly do it. And you won't do that if you don't love the work. You'll find all kinds of other stuff to do. But if you just love it, you'll do it even if people aren't paying you for it. And God knows I've been through times when that's been the story for me. But it doesn't matter, because the worst day at work, you're doing something that you love.